All right, the second phase of the Boston Marathon bombing trial will start this Tuesday after the jury found Dzhokhar Tsarnaev guilty on all 30 counts. Now the jurors must decide whether he will pay for the bombing with his life. One family at the center of this story wants life in prison for Tsarnaev. The family of 8-year-old victim Martin Richard says in an op-ed in the Boston Globe, they don't want their 2 children to have to live with years of appeals, saying this, quote, "We hope our 2 remaining children do not have to grow up with the lingering, painful reminder of what the defendant took from them, which years of appeals would undoubtedly bring," end quote. Let's bring in our legal guys to talk about the penalty phase. Avery Freeman, a civil rights attorney and law professor in Cleveland, and Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor, joining us from Las Vegas. Good to see both of you.
Good to see you, Frederica.
All right, and now we've had you both individually here in studio with me. Now, if only we could get you together. Avery was just here last week, and Richard, you were just here last month. So anyway, it's always great to have you guys here. All right, good to see you.
Joyous to be with you, joyous.
So Avery, let me go to you first, because Massachusetts is not a death penalty state, but this is a federal case, and that's why the jurors are trying to consider life or death. So what will happen in this penalty phase? What's the expectation of the kind of evidence presented, if there will be anything different or even testimony to try to appeal to the jurors for either a life or death penalty?
Well, you're exactly right. The confusion is that under Massachusetts law, there is no death penalty. This is a federal law. Congress authorized death penalty. That's what the jury is going to consider. It's simply a matter of mitigating factors versus aggravating factors. And that balance is going to have to be made by the jury. The complication, I think, is that with the op-ed pieces, with the editorials, and of course, Judge George O'Toole, the federal judge, has instructed the jury, don't look at media. But they're not sequestered, and you know they are. So the problem is, are they going to be affected, and will that reading media and watching media impact on their decision making? And I think it very well could.
And so, Richard, this does not have to be or does it have to be a unanimous decision by the jurors?
Yeah, Fred, this has to be 12-0. If one juror holds out, no death penalty. And here's the situation, Fred. When you go to a voir dire and the judge says, listen, this is the law, could you apply the facts to this law, and could you actually vote for death? And everybody sits there in front of the judge and says yes. Then you go through a trial and you live and see this guy every day in court for as long as this trial lasted. Now you have to go back and deliberate. Can you give the thumbs down?
So you're saying a relationship, so to speak, almost a relationship that's built, you're saying, between the jurors and the defendants?
Exactly, Fred. It goes to the humanization of the defendant. That's what it goes to, and that's what the defense will try to show.
All right, Avery?
Well, I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I think what's going to happen here is that the prosecution obviously wants the death penalty. You have a certain mentality. You've got 12 people, 7 women, 5 men, who have indicated during the jury selection, yes, we don't have a problem, ordering a death penalty if the facts merit it. But again, the question during the arguments will be, has our society, Frederica, evolved from a certain bloodthirstiness where we need to kill this guy, or has civilization evolved where life in prison really is the appropriate question? And that's the very complicated part, and nobody knows the answer to that.
And, it's a heinous crime, and especially in a town like Boston, I mean, this particular offense really hits at the heart, goes to the core of people there. And so this is very personal. But I wonder, Richard, if in any way his age, he's a young man, if they are looking at the offense, or if these jurors are looking at this young man, in that court every day, and how much that might influence their decision about whether it's life or death.
That's his only chance out of this. I mean, I don't even think they're going to put him on the stand to try to save his life, because I don't think they can trust him to get up there and not rant and rave about something. So I think that if he can be humanized in this portion of the case, his life will be spared. Very liberal up in Massachusetts, as we said earlier. No state death penalty, federal death penalty. But here's the conundrum for them, Fred. What do? Do they sentence him to death, which will make him a martyr, give him his 1,000 virgins.
Which he scrawled in that boat the night that he was apprehended, that he wanted that. He was jealous of his brother for having found death, life
Right.
after death
Exactly.
and how he was hoping for that.
And years of appeals and money, or do they give him life in prison and end it right there with parole? With some appeals, but that'll be it. That will give the closure. I think we're going to be looking at life in prison. I think a couple jurors are going to hold out.
Actually,
here.
I agree with that. I think that's right.
No, don't. Then I
Irrespective
think
of
it's
the
going to be
media,
death penalty.
I think that's right.
I think it's death
Bad
penalty.
TV when you guys agree. But go ahead. Just kidding. All right. Avery.
Right.
Avery and Richard, thank you so much.